Hi folks, this is just a short introductory video for your first task of this week. I'm going to try and make it 3 tasks every week, totaling pretty much an hour each task, and that'll take you to your kind of 3 to 3.5 hours per week, which is kind of what we're expecting and what we're going to go with up until the start of the summer break. Now, the resource document that I'm going to put online, I'm just going to take you through. I'm also going to show you the outline of each of the tasks, which we'll do up until summer, just to give you a heads up for kind of what I'm expecting, and what you'll need to do, and kind of what knowledge and understanding you'll have at the end of this kind of pre-summer term. So first, the spreadsheet. I'll upload this spreadsheet into the team in due course, but I've got little comments on it just to kind of outline exactly what's going to be requested within each topic area. As I said previously, I'm going to try and kind of snip it up into 3 kind of tasks each week, so that you're not doing something for 3.5 hours. Going to try and break it up for you. Your introductory video that was posted yesterday is under kind of number 1, so it's just viewing that video. Number 2, which is the thing that I'm going to talk about in this video, is design elements and principles. Now, there's 16 design elements and principles, I believe, that you have to know about and you have to have understanding of. In this video and in this task, this first task for this week, I'm going to take you through and ask you to complete a wee task on line, shape, texture and value. The other thing that I'm going to get you to do this week, which I'll put a video of a little bit later, is desktop publishing terms and finding evidence of them. And again, there's going to be a kind of selected few I'm going to take you through, and then a task that I'm going to get you to do for that. So that's the kind of 2 things that we're going to be doing this week. And then next week you'll look at colour, so harmony, contrasting, advancing, receding, these kind of things that you'll know from National 5, but just to secure the knowledge. A few more design elements and principles, and also a few more desktop publishing terms, which we'll go through as well. So to head back to the PowerPoint, this is what I'm uploading into the assignment channel, and this is kind of what I'll take you through, and I'll explain exactly what I'm looking for in the work that you submit as your assignment. So line, shape, texture and value, I'll just read this out as it says. To start, we're going to first build our knowledge of key design elements and principles, and identify them in professionally produced publications. Soon we will also look into the justification in using these principles. Now that's really important, because that's something that traditionally I think is done quite poorly in the higher course. It's all very well being able to know about the design elements and principles, and being able to evidence them and identify them in a question, for example. What people tend to find a lot harder is justifying why they have been used by the designer. So justifying exactly why the designer has chosen to have a certain shape, or has chosen to use a certain texture in their work. So that's something that we'll look at in the kind of coming weeks, as well as knowing about them, but also that understanding and making sure you kind of understand why they've been used. So for this task, consider the following 4 design elements and principles, and find examples of each of them being used in any of the following websites. I'm looking for at least one occasion where each of the 4 design element and principles are being used. So you're going to produce an assignment, quite a short assignment just to get started, of at least 4 PowerPoint slides in total. Now, the websites I'd like you to use in order to find these design elements and principles, because obviously these are all published materials, these are all promotional graphics, these website homepages. You can use any of them. If you want to deviate from these and use a few others, perhaps your favourite website that you buy all your clothes from, I don't know, I'm more than happy for you to use it, just as long as it's a professionally made homepage. But these are a fairly good example of the ones that you can use and should show up the evidence that we're looking for. This is just a quick slide of basically what I'm looking for. So the National 5s this week have got a similar task in that they're looking at alignment, and they're trying to find evidence of that in any of the home pages. So here's what I'd be expecting from them, and effectively the same thing I'm expecting from you, where you'd be evidencing the specific design element principle, drawing attention to it with perhaps arrows, and then just writing a short sentence to make clear the evidence. So for you folks, line, shape, texture, and value. First off, line. Line, I believe, from memory, I don't think it's in the National 5 course, but it's a fairly self-explanatory element, really. Line usually draws the eye to the area of importance. So depending on line weight, this might be done subtly or more obviously. And it can also suggest movement, speed, or rhythm. So it draws attention to something. That's its kind of main use. As you can see, the kind of green line on the left, it kind of goes up and down, and then it eventually draws your eye to the band of 5 people, and then the line will take you away from there. So usually something's positioned at the end of the line. That's really common, but it's really to kind of show emphasis. So any of the websites that from that previous slide you want to use, then try and find one example or at least one example of line and evidence it similar to kind of how I've shown here. So that would be a fourth of the task, I suppose. Shape's a very, very obvious one. It's effectively, where shape is used, it's mainly used to draw attention to something. So usually something will be inside the shape. Shape is quite commonly used alongside crop, where something is cut to a certain shape. It's also used, as you can see, to kind of highlight headings or highlight important information like 18th of June, music festival, free entry, that kind of thing. And also the colour of these shapes can add further impact. So you see Unity, you know Unity from National 5, but you can see where that 18th of June circle is has been created to have the same colour as those kind of other shape elements behind. Shape also links with contrast as well, as you'll know from the National 5 course, where one shape that's maybe more circular is going to contrast with another shape that is more angular. So again, this is where we see it at higher, probably more so than National 5. You're seeing a crossover of a lot of these different design elements and principles where we didn't maybe think of that before. Here you're seeing where a lot of them impact each other. So shape should be quite an easy one for you to evidence from your home pages. Texture is not something that you might have gone through at National 5, but is really just self-explanatory. It's where you're seeing a background texture usually, or a texture within an image sometimes, but it's usually a background texture that's applied across a publication. As you can see from that fried chicken delicious fresh advert, you've kind of got a texture over the back of it to make it seem as if it's a little older in style, a little bit ragged. So it says some layouts have a background texture applied across the document to achieve a certain style, to pull different elements together. Some layouts use a variety of images where a texture within an image contrasts with another element. In the fashion magazine example, the depth and tone of the handbag contrasts with the yellow block text fashion. So that's where, I suppose, two different examples of where texture is used. One where texture is across the whole publication and it kind of works to tie everything together, and another where you're seeing contrast of that kind of block text that is not textured. It's just a block colour, it doesn't change, and you're seeing it contrasting with that quite clear kind of almost snakeskin looking handbag on the right hand side. Again, in web pages, texture I think should be a fairly easy one. Fairly easy one to find. Value is probably one of the more tricky ones to kind of wrap your head around with the design elements and principles. Value is used to describe how reflective, bright, dark, intense, or saturated a colour is. Now, it's a confusing one to think about. The way I usually think about it myself is paint. If you're painting something, usually a high value colour is going to be more saturated and it's going to look as if it's had a few more coats of paint. The colours that are not high value, so are low value colours, are colours where you see them being more reflective and bright. So it's almost like light is bouncing off them rather than light being kind of sucked in and lost. So we think of them as kind of bright and dark being your opposites there. Reflective and saturated, I suppose, they're not quite opposites, but One is certainly more reflective, one is certainly more saturated. A few other examples as well. You're certainly got a more saturated colour on one side here, and again it's as if there's more paint there. It's as if there's 3 or 4 more coats of paint. With this one, it's quite reflective and it's also quite light. Another example, you've got quite a bright red here, and you've got a more saturated, almost like there's a few more coats in that pink. And also with the blue and with the beige, you've got quite a kind of saturated beige and quite a bright, almost reflective blue. And it also says we can use value to add contrast to a layout. Colours with a high value tend to be brighter colours. Do high value colours seem to have more or less weight? So if we were to try and think of each of these pairings as which one is the heavier colour, then it's really going to be the one that's saturated. So the one that's heavier, think of it again as more coats of paint perhaps, where it's not bright, it's not reflective, it's kind of saturated and deep. So that's your 4. So as I say, your task is to use those home pages there. You could use one of them, you could use 4 different ones if you want to find one example of line, one example of shape, one example of texture, one example of value, and then just screenshot them as I have done just there, with a little sentence and a few arrows. Okay, so just a fairly simple, straightforward task, building on your knowledge from National 5.